Welcome to Changing Higher Ed, a podcast dedicated to helping higher education leaders improve their institutions. With your host, Dr. Drum McNaughton, CEO of The Change Leader, a consultancy that helps higher ed leaders holistically transform their institutions. Learn more at changinghighered.com. And now, here's your host, Drum McNaughton.
Thank you, David. We welcome back today Terrence Cheng, the Chancellor of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities System. The Connecticut State System serves more than 72,000 students through its 12 community colleges, 4 state universities, and Charter Oak State College. The system is undergoing significant changes that will leverage its strengths in a state that is minority-majority, and it will ensure that equity and workforce preparation for colleges and universities whose graduates are the engine of the state's workforce. Terrence, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, of course. Well, I'm looking forward to wrapping up our conversation. Let's dig right in with where we left off. We talked a lot about the different challenges that you've had there in the state of Connecticut and with the state system. Let's jump on to online programs and K-12 partnerships, two areas that you're doing exceptional work in.
Yes, online programs are the now and the future. Higher ed was disrupted by COVID. We all went online. I think some of us did it better than others, but the reality is that we're not going back to full face-to-face at every single institution. That's just not going to happen. And just like other industries, if we don't embrace online, then we are going to be pulverized by it. And I don't think that's an option. We need to understand that this is the new landscape and that education can be delivered in an effective and accessible and cost-efficient way online that is going to help a lot of people. So I tell my presidents and my institutions, not everybody needs the same program. You don't need the same program at 4 different universities or at 12 different community college campuses. Online gives us the opportunity to combine what I say are the superpowers of every institution and every campus and turn them into a degree opportunity or an educational opportunity that takes advantage of the assets of different units and different stakeholders and aggregates them so that we serve as many students as possible. So that is one of our goals, is to have more shared online opportunities, degrees, credentials that our faculty are driving, and again, utilizing their cumulative superpowers to create these unique and special places.
There was a question that came to mind. From an enrollment perspective, are the students enrolling at a particular institution? Or are they enrolling part of the system to be able to get different courses?
So this is part of the challenge of where we are right now. So the landscape is still a bit scattered, right? And when you look at the major players in online education, they have really solidified their offerings and their identity around purely online. And with a system like ours, we have the potential to carve out a big piece of that space. But because the culture has not really advanced collaborative actions in the past, we're charting those activities now. So we're looking to amplify the work of Charter Oak State College, which is our singularly accredited online-only college that offers 4-year degrees as well as non-credit certificates and badges and so forth. So we want to use them as a kind of anchor, right, for best practices, but also for infrastructure. But then to keep the expertise and the uniqueness of that experience in the hands of the faculty that may come from Southern Connecticut or may come from Western Connecticut or any of the 4 universities. And so that is still part of the work that we need to do. So you can get your online education through Charter Oak. You can also get it through specific programs at some of the specific institutions, but we need to start to unify aspects of that work.
That's very helpful to understand. K-12.
K-12, I think, is, we take it for granted, right? We want to think that students are going to automatically be kind of programmed or messaged that college is an option. That's just not true. That's number one, right? Things have changed, and especially in certain zip codes, certain neighborhoods, students are not given that message. right? They are not told that they are good enough or worthy or should go to college the way many of the more economically stable zip codes would be, right? And so what I think we can do is create more partnership and should create more partnership. And what we're doing to that vein is we created an auto admit program for our state that includes both my 4 universities within the system as well as multiple private institutions. So this was a legislature-driven auto admit program that is calibrated by GPA. This year, you will be able to be a part of the auto admit program by using the Common App. So again, we've made it more fluid, more seamless. This way, more students are messaged and told and kind of guided towards a 4-year path straight from high school, right? We're going to take this model and actually advance it as well to our technical high schools. Our technical high schools, there are 17 technical high schools, and we actually have 17 community college campuses. And so the symmetry is perfect. So what we want to do is offer automatic admission to all technical high school graduates. Upon graduation, you will be automatically admitted, accepted to your local community college, right? And so again, by making it as easy as possible, almost to an opt-out type situation, we hope to give access to even more students. I think that we have to be very intentional as well about the kinds of partnerships and academies we create. So we have the IBM P-Tech partnership with Norwalk Community College and Norwalk High School. We want to take models like that and also try to bring them to scale. So the more we can message that the continuum goes not just from 9th grade to 12th grade and then you figure it out. Well, guess what? I don't want to call it 13th grade, but I want to show them there's a very clear bridge to higher education upon graduation.
You know, that reminds me a lot of what Madeline Atkins is doing over at Lucy Cavendish College in part of University of Cambridge. They actually have changed their admission requirements and are now, I wouldn't say requirements, changing their admission, and now are admitting 90% of their students from public institutions.
That's great.
It requires them to reach back into K-12 and work with students to make sure that they're ready, and even more importantly, that they believe that they are ready to come in. That imposter syndrome that we've talked about in the past.
Yes, absolutely.
And what they do, they have the regular orientation. You know, this is after they've graduated from high school. They have the regular orientation, but they also have something prior to that called Bridging Week.
Yes.
And in this Bridging Week, they give practice exams so that students understand this is the way it's going to be done. They teach them, they use the tutorial model there rather than, you know, the lecture, et cetera. So they put them through a couple of those so they get it. They give them a very in-depth orientation as far as these are where your class is going to be, et cetera.
Right.
So when they get to orientation, they feel like they belong as part of the university. I mean, to me, it's a brilliant model. And that's what I hear you're doing as well.
I love that. That's exactly where we want to go, what we're doing, and what we want to do even more of. It's about establishing that muscle memory, right? And kind of coding your DNA a certain way. We can't expect students to know what they just flat out have never been told or have never experienced. We have to help them do that. And I think that does address equity barriers. It does address kind of systemic barriers to education by just telling someone, I'm going to help you. You belong here. I'm going to help you. You've got what it takes. And so now let's go do this. I'm not doing the work for you. You know, there's nothing charitable about this, but I'm going to give you frameworks that are going to help you as a 21st century student. And this to me is one of the big problems. We still use 20th century paradigms and think that they are going to be solutions for 21st century students and 21st century problems. It's a broken way of thinking. And if we don't make adjustments, we're doomed to fail.
Isn't that part of Einstein's theory of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results?
Well, I may be the wrong person to ask about theories of insanity if you ask some of my staff. So I'll plead the fifth on that one. But ultimately, We just got to recognize that the world is not the one we grew up in. Our children are native digital learners. They understand the world in different ways through different lenses. And going back to where we started this conversation with Rep 4, if we don't see the world through their eyes, how will we ever serve them properly?
Absolutely. Which takes us to the last point we were going to cover today,
Mm-hmm.
individual student instruction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you recognize a student where they are,
Right.
it's not a one size fits all anymore.
That's right. I think, going back to this idea of the 20th century paradigms for education, right? It's a very neoliberal model, right? So if you need something, you go search it out. I need advising. I will go find my advisor. I need the bursar. I'll go find the bursar. I need to talk to somebody. I'm feeling stressed out. I feel like I'm depressed. I'll go find the mental health person. I don't think that really works to the advantage of our students. We have to recognize who our students are, especially systems like ours, right? Especially systems like ours that are minority majority, that have students that come from very challenged socioeconomic backgrounds. They have not grown up oftentimes with one parent that has gone to get a 4-year degree, much less both parents, right? So they don't have that kind of framework or that foundation that, folks like me might take for granted, or folks like my children will take for granted. And so we have to recognize who they are and serve them to their needs. I am a big fan of coaching models. Some people will say concierge. I don't like that word. I think we need coaches. I think we need single point of contact where if Terrence has a problem, he can go to Drum and Drum can say, okay, your car broke down. This is the local mechanic. You're having a stressful time, trouble sleeping. Here is your mental health counselor. You're trying to get your resume in shape for interviews and job applications. Here is your career counselor, right? You need a point guard for life sometimes to kind of get you to the right place at the right time. But asking the student, especially post-COVID, where they have suffered an immense amount of damage that we can't even fully explain yet. We have to serve the students, and that doesn't mean they're weak, doesn't mean they're lesser than. It means they need things differently than we understand it, and it's our job to figure it out and help them.
Talking about this reminds me of our good friend Russell Lowry Hart.
Mm-hmm.
Back in I think it was spring 2022. Of course, Russell had put all of these pieces in place, the connections to communities, etc.
Mm-hmm.
He had in his Amarillo College,
Mm-hmm.
2-year institution, had 99 students go homeless. 99.
Yeah.
Only one of them dropped out because
Wow.
they were able to take care of all the services that these
Yes.
students need.
Yes.
It's like your one-stop shop.
Yes.
They know
Yes.
exactly who to contact when something like this happens, and they feel comfortable enough to be able to do that and know that they're going to get the support.
Correct. Knowing who you are, embracing who you are, and then ultimately destigmatizing the fact that you need help, right? And that's why Russell is a brilliant leader who continues to do great things across his state at different institutions. That's exactly what I would argue we all need to do in higher education, right? And really in society, we have to start destigmatizing the fact that we need help, that we don't know everything. We have to also accept the fact that we don't all start at the same starting line, right? Depending on where you were born or what zip code you were born or, where your parents either did or didn't go to school. I mean, all of these things matter. And I don't say that to become political. I just think that's reality, right? And the data backs it up. And I think the sooner we embrace that, the more quickly we'll be able to help our students.
I fully agree. So you've had some incredible results so far. You've stabilized enrollment, and you're really laying the groundwork for what higher ed is going to look like in the state of Connecticut. I mean, those are fabulous.
Well, we're trying. I mean, I think we have a real opportunity to change the narrative and the vision. Right. And what we have to do is make sure, first and foremost, it's always about the students. And it's also about calibrating our relationships with faculty and staff so that they feel respected, they feel supported to do the job. And I think that is always a work that has to be done. But we got to understand that we're here to serve students and focus on student needs and outcomes. When we do that, we tell a much stronger, more detailed story to our legislators and to our governor and to our industry leaders who are going to want to be part of all the great work we're doing. I used to use it when I worked in the Bronx. I would use this analogy, and I don't use it as much anymore because I'm in Connecticut, so I don't know who roots for what team. But I would say in the Bronx, listen, why do free agents want to come to the Yankees? Right? Because they're winners, right? We have to prove that we're winners. We have to prove that we're doing things that help people win. And when we do that, people are going to want to be on our team. They're going to want to work with us. They're going to want to be a part of the organization. But it's incumbent upon us to do the winning work. And then the work will speak for itself, and we will start to really be able to connect those dots. But I think the way things are wired right now, there's more progress to be made in that area. And ultimately, we always want to substantiate and corroborate the state's investment in us and people's trust in us. If they don't trust that we are going to do right by them, they're not going to come to us. And so, again, that's a responsibility that we have to bear.
Well, you lost me as soon as you said Yankees.
See, that's why I said I only used the story when I was in the Bronx. Now it's I'm in Connecticut, so you never know.
The Red Sox,
right? It's either Red Sox or Yankees, depending on what part of the state you might be in.
Exactly. And unfortunately, both the Yankees and the Red Sox are at the bottom of their division this year. So
that's right. Well, that's okay. But winning organizations, they speak for themselves, right? And
yes.
And that to me is the goal, is for us to all be proud, feel like winners, and really put out that winning product, so to speak, right? And that is demonstrated by the effectiveness of our students that graduate from us, leave our halls and enter society and just show how great they are.
Well, it also is very dependent on the leadership of an organization. And if you take a look at the Yankees, if you take a look at the Red Sox, and I dare say, if you take a look at Connecticut's state system, you've got good leaders in place that, yes, you may have a down year or two, but you will always come back.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're striving for. And I feel very fortunate to work with a team that is strong, knowledgeable, honest, diligent, and really committed and focused on getting it done for the students and for the state. So I feel blessed in that way.
Well, I think you are. And they're very blessed in having a leader such as yourself. And I know you're humble enough that you wouldn't say it, nor would you probably think it, but it is in fact the truth.
I appreciate that.
So what's next for the Connecticut state system?
Well, we have to deal with our budget challenges. We mentioned President Xi before. We know that institutions around the country are grappling with certain realities. We are certainly wrestling with those realities. And so I want us to control what we can control. I want us to be responsible and accountable for all of that work. And that's how we change our culture. That's how we change our productivity. And I think that's how we change our external perception. So whether it's our academic programs, how we serve students, how we partner in industry, and how we ultimately symbolize and affect change across the state, it is a 24/7, all-encompassing endeavor. But I say this all the time to our team, and I know it sounds a little cheesy, but we're really blessed to be in these jobs, right? We are privileged and blessed to be in these positions that allow us to potentially affect change. And we're not going to be in these jobs forever. And so whether you're in this job for 2 years, you're in this job for 20 years, your job is to do things that are going to move things forward and set up for the next people who will take your seat after you. You want to leave something better to the team that comes after you. And so I think if we stay focused on that, just make improvements every single day, right? Become healthier and stronger every single day. All of a sudden the years go by and you've made significant changes and you've created an even higher bar standard for the next team to rise to. And that is how we affect long-term perpetual change. And so I firmly believe in that. That's the task. That's the challenge. But that's what makes you feel so good. So someday I want to look back at this and go, wow, look at how great they're doing. And I had something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's one other piece that I'll toss in with that. And you alluded to it earlier when you said it's all about the students.
Hmm.
It's a great privilege to be in this job, but it's also a great responsibility because
Yes,
we are helped to mold and shape that next generation. And
I
if you
agree.
don't think it's important,
Right,
one, you're in the wrong position. And
right.
second, who the heck is going to take care of you when you get old and gray like I am?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. I want to have a really strong healthcare force because someday I'm going to need that healthcare force, right? To make sure we're taken care of. I'm going to need great leaders to orchestrate the things in our state or in our country to make sure that society is long-term sustainable and viable. And it is a great responsibility. And it goes back to what I was saying before. I just think of all the opportunities I've had in my life, frankly, a kind of poor immigrant kid, first in my family to go to college here in the United States. I don't have any brothers or sisters. And now I have the chance to be the chancellor of the Connecticut State University system. I have a chance to work with wonderful administrators and faculty and staff. I have a chance to represent all of these students that remind me of myself in so many ways. And so if I'm a little crazy sometimes, it's because I'm only going to be in this seat for, God knows how long. And I damn well better do a good job or else I'm going to fail all these people. And that's a responsibility I take very seriously.
Mm-hmm. And I wish there were more people who took it that way rather than saying, this is a job, I'm in it for me.
Well, like you said, if that's how you feel, you're in the wrong game.
Absolutely. Terrence, thank you. 3 takeaways for your fellow presidents and board members.
Oh gosh, I'm not one to offer a great deal of knowledge because I feel like as a creative writing fiction writer by trade, I make things up for a living, and
Well,
so
then
that's
make it
that's
up.
yeah. No, well, I'll say this. Here's a few that come to mind. Okay, I think for new and incoming leaders, right? For me, this is a big responsibility I embraced. It took me a while to kind of get over my own sense of imposter syndrome, right? To trust my instincts and to basically remind myself that you got here doing things a certain way. And so you got to believe in yourself to continue doing that. Doesn't mean you don't listen, but you got to trust your instincts, right? I would also say that to make changes sooner rather than later, right? Again, trusting those instincts. And if you know that you need to make some staff changes or you need to make some organizational changes, give yourself enough time to gather the data. But sometimes when you take too long, it can have a very detrimental effect. And the last thing I would say is about communication, you owning the narrative of your story. Don't let folks tell your story for you. Be out there, be upfront, be ruthlessly honest with the data, have integrity in what you say, but make sure you say what needs to be said. Don't wait for others to say it for you because who better to own your message than you?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to add 2 to your list if you don't mind.
So please.
1, have a good mentor,
Hmm.
especially first time you're in the job. Have a good mentor. And it's like when we work with boards, we say, when you've seen one board, you've seen one board.
Right. That's right.
When you've seen one presidency, you've seen one presidency. If you see 2 presidencies, you've seen 2 different. Every
Right.
situation is different.
Correct.
Find a mentor who can help you see different things
Yes.
differently.
Yes.
And secondly, build that relationship with your board chair.
Mm.
That is
Yes.
probably one of, if not the most critical relationship a university president can have. If the
Yes.
2 of you can be joined at the hip, it doesn't mean that you tell him or her what to do or vice
Hmm.
versa. But
Hmm.
if you've got that relationship, it's going to make things far smoother for you in the long run.
Excellent advice. I don't take for granted that I have a really great relationship with my board chair. That's for sure, because you're 100% right. It makes life a heck of a lot easier. And the mentorship, I could not agree more. I'm very fortunate to have folks who have supported me for a long time who are either current and or past presidents and chancellors who I can call and say, hey, have I lost it? Am I losing my mind if I do this? And they'll say, no, you're okay, but don't do the other thing you just said because then, you're going to have a real problem on your hands. So that guiding voice is absolutely instrumental.
Mhm. What's next for you? What's next for CT State?
Yeah, we're going to continue to talk to our legislators, continue to work with our governor and gain their input in terms of where they think they want us to go and continue to kind of give to them the vision of where we believe we need to go and try to kind of reconcile any differences that there might be or confusions there might be. Continue to try to let the students know that we're here for them, that we want them, and that we're going to do right by them, and ultimately let our workforce partners and community partners know that if they have needs, we have an incredible source of talent that is at their fingertips, and we're ready to help them fill those needs.
Those are great. Terrence, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I look forward to doing this again in the future.
Well, I'd be happy to be asked back, and give me a little time so I can report on some hopefully good news, and be happy to come back and share it.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for listening today, and a special thank you to our guest, Terrence Cheng, Chancellor of the Connecticut State Colleges and University System. Tune in next week.
Changing Higher Ed is a production of The Change Leader, a consultancy committed to transforming higher ed institutions. Find more information about this topic, along with show notes on this episode at changinghighered.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to the show, and we would also value your honest rating and review. Email any questions, comments, or recommendations for topics or guests to podcast@changinghighered.com. Changing Higher Ed is produced and hosted by Dr. Drum McNaughton, post-production by David L. White.